people, I'm Nicole, and today I have what may be the biggest book haul I have ever done for you guys. Somehow May got a little out of hand, and I'm thinking I might have to go on a bit of a book buying ban for a little while because my TBR is seriously just out of control. I also might have to go through an unhaul some. So I'm gonna hopefully rush through this so this book haul won't be too uncontrollably long. But let's just jump right in. The first book I got this month was A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas. This is the third book in the ACOTAR series of Court of Thorns and Roses, and this picks up a few months after the previous book left off. If you don't know what the series is, it starts off as a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and it has lots of fairies and epic wars and magic and romance. It's marketed as young adult, but I think it's really more new adult, so if you're going into it, just be aware of that. There is some more mature content, but I have already read this and I will talk about it more in my wrap up. Then I have Always and Forever, Laura Jean, and this is the third book in the To All the Boys I've Loved Before series by Jenny Han. And this series is about a girl who, whenever she is sort of done with having a crush on a boy, she writes a letter to him explaining all her feelings, and then she tucks them away in a hat box and she's done with the crush. She's over them. But one day all those letters get sent out. And this is the third book in the series following Laura Jean in her last year of high school. Then I got The Dark Prophecy by Rick Riordan. This is the second book in the Trials of Apollo series, which is another one of Rick Riordan's Greek mythology series. This one follows Apollo, the god of music and the sun, etc., after he is turned mortal by his father, and so he's trying to figure out how to turn it back into a god. And while he's doing that, he's also trying to track down all these different oracles that he's usually in charge of, but things have been going a little haywire recently. Then I got Unbeatable Squirrel Girl, Squirrel Meets World by Shannon and Dean Hale. So I have been absolutely loving the Unbeatable Squirrel Girl comic, and so when I saw that there was a novelization, I definitely had to pick it up. I am so excited to read this. Apparently it follows the sort of origins of Doreen as Squirrel Girl, so that should be really interesting to read. I think she's like 14 in this, so it seems like it'll be very different from the comics where she's currently in college. Then I got a whole bunch of comics, starting with Silk Volumes 1 and 2. I don't know a ton about Silk. I know she's a sort of Spider-Man spin-off kind of character. I think she started off in the same Spider-Verse stories as Spider-Gwen. I do have a friend who cosplayed her at Comic-Con this year, so I thought I should probably read up, and she seems like she's pretty cool. Then I got DC Bombshells Volume 3, and this series follows a bunch of the DC women being awesome badasses during sort of World War II era. Then I got Spider-Gwen Volume 2, and I really enjoyed Volumes 0 and 1 of Spider-Gwen, so I thought I would pick up the next one. And this is just sort of an alternate universe where Gwen Stacy is the spider-based superhero instead of Peter Parker. Then I got Miss Marvel Volume 5, and I've really been loving the Miss Marvel series. I haven't read one in a little bit, so I might need to reread to get caught up, but I do really love this series, so I'm very excited to read this next volume. Then I got Unbeatable Squirrel Girl Volume 3, Squirrel You Really Got Me Now, and again, this is another series that I've just been loving. Like I said when I talked about the Squirrel Girl book, I absolutely love Squirrel Girl. I think she's so funny and clever, and so I'm very excited to read the next volume. And then I got Paper Girls Volume 2, and this one is it has a little bit of a Stranger Things vibe, except the group's all girls. A little bit of like time travel. I'm still trying to figure out exactly what's going on since it's just on Volume 2, but the first volume intrigued me, so I'm definitely interested in reading this next one. And then the final comic I picked up is Saga Volume 7, and I have absolutely been loving Saga. I may need to reread a little bit to get caught up and remember what happened in the previous volume because it's been a little bit, but I love Saga. It's one of my favorite series, so I am very, very, very excited to read this next volume. Then I got the paperback of Carry On by Rainbow Rowell. Carry On is one of my favorite books. I love Rainbow Rowell so much, and I am so obsessed with this paperback cover. It looks so cool. I love that it feels kind of like fan art, which connects with the themes of Fangirl, which if you don't know, Carry On is the story that the main character in Fangirl was writing. So I love that it kind of connects with that, and I just think it looks so pretty, and I just had to have the paperback to add to my Rainbow Rowell collection. Then I got The Love Interest by Cale Dietrich, and this is a little bit of a like speculative fiction sci-fi that follows two teenage boys who work for this secret organization that basically sends out love interests for people who they've deemed to be important. And so they get sent out to get this girl to fall for them, and basically they're going to be in a love triangle with the two of them and then the girl, and whichever one she chooses stays with her, and whichever one she doesn't choose dies. And then they start to fall for each other. I have read this, I absolutely loved it, and I will talk about it more in my wrap up. Then if you've been following me and my book hauls for the past few months, I've been slowly collecting a series of unfortunate events just because I read them all when I was a kid and I only ever had the first 3 books. So I just picked up books 9 through 11. So that's 9, 10, 11, Carnivor's Carnival, The Slippery Slope, and The Grim Grotto. I only have like 2 more to collect, so very close to the end. And then I picked up The Isle of the Lost by Melissa de la Cruz, and this is a sort of novelization prequel to the Disney movie Disney's Descendants, which is about the children of all the Disney villains, and I really actually genuinely enjoy that movie. I know it's like cheesy Disney Channel movie, but I do think it's a lot of fun, and I do like Melissa de la Cruz as an author, so I thought I might as well. And then I got Lord of Shadows by Cassandra Clare. This is the second book in the Dark Artifices series following Emma Carstairs and Julian Blackthorne. I actually just did a review for this on my channel, so I will link that in the doobly-doo. Full video review, it's like 30 minutes long, but the first, I think, 10 minutes or so are all spoiler free, so if you haven't had a chance to read this yet, don't worry about it. I do warn you when I start to get spoilery. And then actually, in a very exciting turn of events, a new bookstore opened up in my hometown. That's Redmond, Washington. And that just opened up just a couple days ago on the 30th. They're having their grand opening June 23rd, so make sure to go check them out. They're in Redmond Town Center. They're called Brick and Mortar Books. So my family, we went on their opening day and we decided that we wanted to support a local business. So we may have gone a little crazy with the book buying. And the first thing I have is Rest in the Morning by R.H. Sin. This is a book of poetry. I've read one of his other books, that's Whiskey Birds in a Shovel Volume 2. Don't ask me why I didn't get volume 1. I think they just didn't have it at the bookstore. But I did enjoy that other book of poetry, so I thought I would pick up. I think this is his most recent book. And then I got Still Life with Tornado by A.S. King. And I've read, I think, 2 other A.S. King books, and I've enjoyed them. Her writing always intrigues me, and I'm not entirely sure if I get it all the time, but she writes really cool kind of magical realism stories. And this one is about, I believe, a girl with multiple personalities, I think. And so she's dealing with that sort of internal issue, and then she's also dealing with her family, her parents, who I believe have some kind of abusive relationship. Then I got Seconds by Brian Lee O'Malley, and this is a graphic novel about, I think it's about a girl who she sort of has her life together. She's a chef, she has a boyfriend, and then all of a sudden things just kind of fall apart, and she gets the opportunity to somehow magically fix it, and then things get a little bit hectic from there. Sorry about all the lighting changes. It's summer in Washington, and sometimes there's sun and sometimes there are clouds, and it's kind of unpredictable. But I've just heard so many amazing things about this book that I thought I had to pick it up and see for myself. Then I got Last Sext by Melissa Broder, and I hadn't heard of this book of poetry before. I was just flipping through it and it looked interesting. So that's the only explanation I have for this. It just looked interesting and it's poetry. Then I got My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix, and this is a horror novel from the same guy who wrote Horror Store, which is it's a horror novel with a bit of a sense of humor. That entire book is set in sort of a IKEA parody, and I believe this one is a bit of like an 80s high school movie parody. A girl and her best friend go skinny dipping, and then it seems like her best friend gets possessed. Then I got Of Poetry and Protest from Emmett Till to Trayvon Martin, and this is edited and compiled by Philip Cushway and Michael War. So this is a bunch of poetry and different kinds of contributions about protest and revolution. And I don't know a ton about it, but I was just flipping through it and it looks really, really, really interesting. So those are all the books I got from Brick and Mortar Books. Like I said, they're having their grand opening on June 23rd. Marissa Meyer's gonna be there. It's gonna be a lot of fun. So definitely go check them out if you're in the Redmond, Bellevue, Seattle area. Then at one point I was just kind of wandering around Value Village and I found their book section and I found a few that I just felt like I needed to get. So I got like 10 books there. We started with Selected Poems by Walt Whitman. And then I found this whole set of matching children's books. So in this set there are Robin Hood, Little Women, Pinocchio, Treasure Island, Black Beauty, A Child's Garden versus Heidi, Hans Christian Andersen Fairy Tales, and The Adventures of Robinson Crusoe. And then finally, I have mentioned a few different times in a couple hauls that I have a friend who works at Amazon and she has access to ARCs. And so every once in a while she just sends me photos of shelves at her work and lets me pick out ARCs that I want. So I have a number of books that she so generously gave me. First of all, I have How to Make a Wish by Ashley Herring Blake. This book is already out, so you can go pick it up in stores, and I have heard a lot of people talking about this, but I haven't actually heard too much about what it's about. I think it's sort of a summer romance between two girls, but that's really all I've heard. But I have heard so many people just raving about it. Then I got Kill All Happies by Rachel Cohn. And this is about a girl who is just graduating high school, and just as she's getting ready to head off to college, her town's sort of iconic restaurant, Happy's, is going out of business. So she decides to throw a sort of goodbye party to Happy's, but unfortunately it gets a little out of hand. Then I got Letters to the Lost by Bridget Kemmerer. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, but this is about a girl who, her mom died, and so she started writing letters to her and placing them on her grave, and then a boy who works at the cemetery and read her letter and started writing back, and they started writing, having this correspondence between each other, but little do they know that they actually know each other and they go to school together. Then I got Freya by Matthew Lawrence, and it seems like this is kind of a modern day Norse mythology retelling kind of thing. It's about Freya, who has been in hiding as a teenage girl for a while, and now she decides that it's time to sort of return to power. Then I got Things I Should Have Known by Claire Lazabnik. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, but this is about, I believe it's about a girl whose sister is on the autism spectrum, and her sister gets a boyfriend, and then she starts talking to her sister's boyfriend's brother, and he seems like an arrogant jerk, but as is oh so common in YA books, the arrogant jerk turns out to be a total sweetheart, and I'm guessing they fall in love. So I don't know a ton about what this book's about. That's just kind of what I can gauge from the back, but I did watch Emma's review of it and it looked really, really good. I'll link that in the doobly-doo. So I'm definitely interested in checking this one out. Then I got Ramona Blue by Julie Murphy, and I believe this is about a girl who lives in a small town and she feels like she kind of sticks out. She's one of the only lesbians in her town. She's really tall, she has blue hair, and her life's just going a little hectic. Her parents are not really great parents. Her sister just got pregnant and she's trying to juggle multiple jobs, but then an old friend from her childhood comes back, and based on the back description, I'm kind of thinking she might discover that she's actually bisexual. I don't know, we'll see. Then I got Meg and Linus by Hannah Nowinski, and this is about a lesbian and a gay boy who are best friends, but then unfortunately the girl's girlfriend breaks up with her, and in order to distract herself, she tries to set up her best friend with some guy that he just met and thinks is cute. Then I got The Truth About Happily Ever After by Carol Kozo, and this is about a girl who works as Cinderella at a theme park, and there's not a ton of description about what specifically happens beyond that in the description of the book, but things start to change up a little bit just to pull together and try and save her summer that seems like it's just falling apart. Then I got I Believe in a Thing Called Love by Maureen Gu. This is about a girl who pretty much has her entire life together. She has perfect grades, she's student body president, soccer star, she's going to an Ivy League, but she's never had a boyfriend. So she decides to take some tips from Korean dramas to try and come up with a plan to get the perfect boyfriend. Then I got When Dimple Met Rishi Sushi by Sandhya Menon. Again, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. And this is about two teenagers who both come from traditional Indian families who want them to get arranged marriages. And one of them is down for this and, you know, it makes sense to him. The other is not really so sure, but they both end up going to the same summer camp. And I believe that there's some kind of dynamic between them falling for each other and their families trying to arrange for them to get together. I've heard absolutely amazing things about this though, so I'm very excited to read it. Then I got Romeo and Juliet and Jim by Larry Schwartz and Iva Marie Palmer. And this is like a modern day Romeo and Juliet where the Capulets and the Montagues are rival fashion houses. And so you have the whole Romeo and Juliet story, they fall for each other, and then some like American dude named Jim comes in and Juliet falls for him and he kind of throws a wrench into this classic story. I don't know anything else about it, but it sounds like it's gonna be really funny. Then the last arc I have is Tosh Hearts Tolstoy by Catherine Ormshy. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. The name's in cursive on the book, so but this is about a girl who created a web series adaptation of Anna Karenina that all of a sudden just blows up. And she's had this kind of internet flirtationship with this guy, and when he wants to take it sort of to the next level, meet IRL, she has to figure out how to tell him that she's asexual. Then I got Whenever I'm With You by Lydia Sharp, and this is about a girl who moves to Alaska with her father, and while she's there she meets this guy who she's been flirting with and kind of starts up a relationship with, but he starts to withdraw and his brother thinks that it's because he wants to go find their father, retrace his steps in the Alaskan wilderness, and so they have to figure out how to go on this sort of epic journey into the wilderness to figure out what is going on. Then I got Eliza and Her Monsters by Francesca Zappia, and this is about a girl who created this webcomic that has gotten just amazingly popular. One day a boy transfers to her school who writes fanfiction. It turns out he is the most popular fanfiction writer for her webcomic, and they start to develop a relationship. The only problem is she hasn't told him that she's the author because online she is completely anonymous. So those are all the books I got this month. I know it's a lot and I need to stop buying books, mostly just because I have no money left. But, you know, that's life. But let me know if you guys have read any of these and which one I should read next. I have read a number of them and I'll talk about them in my wrap up, but not nearly enough to make up for how many I've acquired. I need to do some serious reading this summer. I love you and I will see you later. Bye!